He healed, he taught, he forgave, he loved. But then he said something no teacher had ever dared to say, not a parable, not a proverb. A claim so bold, it stopped hearts and started a riot. Before Abraham was, I am. In that moment, the man many called Rabbi lifted the veil and spoke the unspeakable, not as a messenger of God, but as God himself. Was it blasphemy? Or was it the truth we've been running from ever since? A sentence that shakes the ground between what we believe and what we're willing to surrender to. This isn't just theology. It's a turning point. This is not the story of a teacher. This is the unveiling of I am, the question that changed everything. Some verses inform, others invite, but a few, very few, demand a response that redefines your life. There are moments in Scripture that don't just speak to us, they stop us. Verses that pierce through the noise, the assumptions, the theological routines, and drop a truth so sharp, so weighty, that it won't let you leave unchanged. One such verse sits quietly in the Gospel of John, not shouted from a mountaintop, not performed with spectacle, but it echoes like thunder through the corridors of human history. Before Abraham was, I am. John 8:58. At first glance, it reads like a puzzle. A strange blend of past and present tenses, a simple sentence that doesn't seem to belong in the mouth of a mere teacher. And that's precisely the point. In this moment, Jesus is not offering a moral guideline, a parable, or a philosophical nugget. He is reaching into the deepest foundation of Jewish belief, into the sacred, the unapproachable, the divine name itself, and placing himself there. To understand the explosive nature of this statement, we have to step into the world of his listeners. For them, the name I am was not just a poetic title, it was holy. It was unrepeatable. It was the name God gave to Moses at the burning bush. I am who I am, a name so sacred that devout Jews would not even pronounce it aloud. It was the divine signature, the self-existent identity of Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So when Jesus, a man standing in flesh and blood, says, before Abraham was, I am, he is not teaching, he is revealing. He is not guiding men to God. He is declaring, unmistakably, that he is God. This was not metaphor. This was not hyperbole. This was, in the ears of his audience, blasphemy, unless, of course, it was true. The crowd's reaction proves they understood the gravity of what he said. They didn't try to argue theology. They picked up stones, not because they misunderstood him, but because they understood him too well. This moment forces us to reckon with who Jesus really is. Was he simply a rabbi with radical insights? A prophet with a moral compass? Or was he what he claimed, God in flesh, stepping into time with the full authority of the one who spoke stars into being? If Jesus was just a teacher, this verse is either arrogant or insane. But if he is who he claimed to be, then this verse is the axis upon which all of reality turns. And here is the tension. Many admire Jesus' teachings while avoiding his identity. They embrace his ethics, but sidestep his essence. But Jesus never left that door open. He didn't say, follow my ideas. He said, follow me. He didn't suggest he had truth. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Before Abraham was, I am. In just 7 words, Jesus collapses time. He steps outside the linear progression of history and reveals that he exists eternally, before and beyond it all. Abraham, the patriarch of faith, revered by Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. Jesus claims priority even over him, and not just priority, pre-existence, supremacy, divinity. This one verse unmasks the illusion that we can neatly categorize Jesus. He defies labels. He is not simply a revolutionary, a healer, a sage. He is the great I am, and in claiming that title, he draws a line in the sand, not just for the Pharisees who heard him, but for us. Because if he is I am, then he is not optional. He is not merely inspirational, he is foundational. Everything must orient around him. Our beliefs, our identity, our future. And yet, for all its majesty, this moment is also deeply personal. The God who identified himself to Moses in fire and thunder now speaks the same name with human breath, the eternal, now wrapped in flesh, the unseeable, now visible, the untouchable, now walking dusty roads. In saying I am, Jesus invites us not just to awe, but to intimacy. He is not only the God who was and is to come, he is the God who is here. This is not a verse to be explained away. It is one to be stood under. Let it confront you. Let it quiet you. Let it strip away the sanitized, manageable image of Jesus that modern religion too often offers, because if he is I am, then everything else is commentary. And the question that remains, perhaps the only question that matters, is this: what will you do with the one who says, I am? The name that divides heaven and earth. Some names describe, others declare, but one name redefines everything it touches, even time itself. Jesus' statement in John 8:58 is not just provocative, it's defining. Before Abraham was, I am. In this one phrase, the veil between heaven and earth is pulled back. The pretense of neutrality is shattered. Jesus isn't merely offering insight, he is issuing identity. And that identity stands at the center of all theology, all reality, all eternity. To understand the core weight of what Jesus is saying, we must begin with the foundational theme of preexistence. He does not claim to have begun at Bethlehem. He reaches far past the incarnation, declaring a timeless self-awareness. Before Abraham, the father of nations, the friend of God, Jesus was. Not was becoming, not was created, was. But even more striking, he says, I am, present tense, existing outside the constraints of chronology. A living, unbounded being who simply is. This is not casual theology. This is a direct echo of Exodus 3:14, when Moses, trembling before a burning bush, asks God what name he should give the Israelites when they ask who sent him. God's answer, I am who I am. This divine self-disclosure, the Hebrew, carries the idea of absolute existence, the one who is, the one who causes to be, the one who needs nothing and no one to define him. And now, Jesus takes that very name and applies it to himself. This isn't metaphor. It's not mystical poetry. It is declaration. In that moment, Jesus isn't just saying who he is telling us what he is. God, unbegotten. God, eternal. God, with us. But to understand this verse is also to wrestle with the deeper theme of authority. In Jewish tradition, to invoke the name of God was not only sacred, it was dangerous. The name was shielded by tradition, guarded by fear, wrapped in reverence. And yet, Jesus speaks it openly, not as one quoting it, not even as one sent by it, but as the one who bears it. This means everything he says and does from this point forward must be viewed through that lens. When he heals, it's not just power, it's the authority of I am. When he forgives sins, he's not claiming privilege, he's exercising divine prerogative. When he calms the storm, walks on water, casts out demons, raises the dead, he's not demonstrating skill, he is revealing identity. And then there is intimacy. For all its grandeur, the claim I am also carries profound personal implications. This is the God who existed before anything was made, who chooses not to remain distant, but to speak, to reveal, to walk among his creation. The great I am is not just a cosmic reality, he's a relational one. His presence is not theoretical, it is near. This verse also draws out the deep theme of exclusivity. Jesus isn't positioning himself as one way among many. He's not offering a humble opinion about spiritual life. He's standing at the epicenter of human history and saying, I am it. There is no other. No teacher, no prophet, no system of belief that can claim what he claims. He doesn't point the way, he is the way. That is why the crowd reached for stones. Because if what he says is true, then everything else must bow. And perhaps one of the most unsettling truths this verse exposes is this: Jesus never leaves room for neutrality. You cannot hear him say, before Abraham was, I am, and walk away politely impressed. This is not the kind of sentence you ponder over coffee and file under interesting spiritual ideas. It forces a choice. Either he is Lord or he is not. Either he is eternal, or he is deceived. There is no third option. Jesus knows exactly what he's doing in that moment. He isn't trying to be mysterious. He is being unmistakably clear. The problem is not that his words are confusing, it's that they are too confronting. The human heart resists the idea of total surrender. But the identity of I am demands nothing less. And finally, this verse anchors our understanding of Jesus as the center of all Scripture. He is not a figure who appears midway through the story. He is the story's author and aim. From Genesis to Revelation, he is the Word who was with God and was God. He is the seed, the rock, the Passover lamb, the burning bush, the cloud by day and fire by night. Every shadow finds its substance in him. So when he speaks the words, "Before Abraham was, I am," he's not merely claiming equality with God, he's declaring, "I am the God you've been seeking all along." And that realization, that changes everything. The voice that spoke before time. The most powerful truths are often hidden in plain sight, spoken softly, but carrying the weight of eternity. It is no coincidence that when Jesus says, "Before Abraham was, I am," he chooses a moment of tension, of confrontation. He doesn't unveil this truth to comfort the weary or to inspire wonder among his followers. He declares it in the middle of a heated argument with religious leaders who believe they already know God. They are standing face to face with the very one they claim to serve, and they do not recognize him. And yet, woven beneath the confrontation lies a symbolic thread that stretches back to the earliest moments of creation. This statement is not only theological, it is profoundly poetic. When Jesus utters, "I am," he is not just asserting status. He is stepping into the deep rhythm of God's self-revealing story. In Genesis, God speaks and light exists. Words become worlds. Voice becomes matter. The universe bends to his utterance. This is the divine pattern. When God speaks, reality responds. And now, that same voice, once echoing across unformed space, is standing in human flesh and speaking again. Not "let there be light," but "I am the light." Not "let the waters teem with life," but "I am the life." Not "let us make man," but "I am the Son of Man." This is not rhetoric, it is revelation. The very cadence of creation is echoed in the cadence of Christ's words. The Logos, the divine word, has not only spoken, but taken form. He is the embodied voice of the eternal. But Jesus is also doing something deeply subversive. He is reframing the religious imagination. The God they thought was contained in the temple, in the scrolls, in the oral tradition, is now walking among them, uncontained and unmistakably present. And he is challenging every assumption, every box, every man-made attempt to manage God through doctrine and hierarchy. The phrase, "I am," is also filled with the power of present tense eternity. It does not say, "I was," or "I will be." It declares presence, unfiltered, uninterrupted, unending. Jesus doesn't claim he once existed, or that he will return. He claims to be. Right now, always, in the burning bush, in the carpenter's shop, in the upper room, in your current moment. That is the beauty of divine presence. It is not stuck in a timeline. It permeates all moments at once. Symbolically, this sentence pulls forward multiple images from Israel's history. When God revealed his name to Moses, he did so from fire, an element that consumes, purifies, illuminates, and mystifies. Fire that does not burn out, a bush that does not wither. It is a portrait of existence that defies explanation. That same essence now stands in front of the Pharisees, but the fire is hidden beneath human skin. The glory is veiled by humility. And this is the scandal. The I am of Sinai has come not with thunder, but with tenderness. Not in a pillar of cloud, but in a man who weeps, touches lepers, and breaks bread with the rejected. The one whose voice once split seas now whispers truth to the shamed. The God of overwhelming holiness now walks with overwhelming grace. This convergence of divine and human is the essence of the Incarnation, and it is what separates Jesus from every prophet, every philosopher, every holy figure in human history. Others may claim to speak about God. Jesus alone speaks as God. And this is why symbolism matters, because symbols carry the weight of realities too vast for literal description. The cross itself, looming in the background of this moment, becomes another layer of this symbol. The I Am will not only speak truth, he will suffer for it. He will not merely declare his divinity, he will demonstrate it in self-giving love. The same voice that spoke galaxies into being will soon cry out in pain. The hands that healed the blind will be pierced. And the world will see not just who God is, but what God is like. That's the heart of this verse, not just that Jesus is divine, but that divinity looks like him, looks like sacrificial love, looks like servanthood, looks like a savior who washes feet and welcomes children and dies between thieves. It would have been one thing for Jesus to say, I am, in a thundercloud, but he says it surrounded by skeptics. He says it in sandals. He says it knowing that his next destination is a cross. And yet, he does not flinch, because that's who I am is. And that is why this verse is not just theological, it is devotional. It calls us not just to understand, but to worship. Not just to analyze, but to respond. Because if he truly is I am, then there is no part of our life that is off limits, no part of our story he cannot enter, no moment in which he is not already present. He simply is, and that changes everything. The divine in daily clothes. If I am is true in eternity, then he must also be real in our Tuesday mornings, traffic jams, and midnight wrestlings. The weight of Jesus' claim, before Abraham was I am, is not meant to remain on ancient scrolls or theological shelves. It was never a line crafted for doctrine alone. It is a truth that reaches into the bloodstream of real life. If he truly is the I am, then that reality must change how we live, not just what we believe. Because here's the truth that many miss. When Jesus declared himself the I am, he wasn't just revealing his identity, he was offering his presence. The name is not a title from a distance. It is an announcement of nearness. I am is the God who is, not the God who was or one day will be. He is present in your confusion, your fear, your questioning, your waiting. He is not just a truth to defend, he is a person to depend on. This makes a profound difference in the way we navigate the ordinary. If Jesus is merely a historical figure or a moral guide, we might respect him, but we wouldn't rely on him in real time. But if he is the eternal I am, then there's no sphere of our existence that falls outside his care. He is just as present in the boardroom as in the prayer room, just as attentive in your parenting struggles as in your moments of worship. This kind of presence changes how we suffer. When the diagnosis lands, when the grief lingers longer than expected, when the breakthrough doesn't come, he doesn't become less God. He remains, I am. Constant, steady, unchanging, not solving everything instantly, but being with you through it. And sometimes, that presence is the miracle. It also reshapes how we pray. We are not throwing words into the sky, hoping a distant deity might listen. We are speaking with one who is already near, already listening, already working. Prayer becomes less about convincing God to care and more about recognizing that he already does. Even in the mundane, the I am reshapes our posture. Whether you're washing dishes, sitting in traffic, or wrestling through deadlines, the question shifts from where is God to how is God revealing himself here? Because if he is I am, then he is already present, whispering through inconvenience, loving through interruption, sanctifying the ordinary. And what about identity? This is one of the most powerful implications. If Jesus is the I am, then we don't need to build our lives around what we think we must become. We can rest in who he already is. Our confidence doesn't come from titles, accomplishments, or image management. It comes from proximity to the one who simply is. And when we find ourselves in him, we don't need to manufacture worth. We reflect it. In relationships, this truth calls us to deeper love. If he is I am, then we don't need to protect ourselves through control or distance. We can love boldly, forgive freely, serve generously, because the security of his presence frees us from the fear of loss. In calling and vocation, I am matters too. We often wait to step forward until we feel fully qualified, ready, or affirmed, but Moses once did the same. Standing before a burning bush, he questioned his adequacy, saying, "Who am I to go?" God didn't answer with a resume of Moses' skills. He simply said, "I will be with you." The presence of I am was enough, and it still is. This changes leadership, it changes parenting, it changes ministry. We are not called to perform for God, we are called to walk with God, not as orphans, but as those indwelt by the great I am. The weight is not ours to carry, the power is not ours to manufacture. Our job is not to be impressive, it is to be faithful. And this presence becomes a quiet defiance against the anxiety and performance culture that chokes the soul. We live in a world of relentless, not enough, not successful enough, not spiritual enough, not productive enough. But the voice of Jesus cuts through that noise with 3 words that change everything. I am enough, and so we begin to see. This one verse is not just a doctrinal anchor, it is a daily compass. It is not meant to end in awe alone, but in action, in trust, in 1,000 small decisions to believe that God is here, that He is good, and that He is enough. Because when Jesus says, I am, He's not just claiming to be God in general. He is offering to be your God, in this moment, in this life, in whatever lies ahead. The revelation that demands a response. Some truths you can analyze, others you can admire, but this one you can only surrender to or walk away from. There are verses that inform us. There are verses that comfort us. And then there are verses that draw a line in the sand. Before Abraham was, I am, is not a moment of nuance, it's a moment of declaration. It does not ask for a polite nod or scholarly discussion. It demands a decision. Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't seeking safe applause or philosophical agreement. He was shattering categories, disrupting false security, forcing his listeners, and us, to confront the real question at the core of faith. Who is this man? Because if Jesus is merely a wise teacher, then we can cherry-pick his teachings and fold them into our lives where convenient. If he is simply a historical figure, then we can study him at a safe distance. But if he is I am, eternal, divine, sovereign, then the only rational response is surrender. Not partial agreement, not admiration, worship. This is why the people who heard him that day reached for stones, not because he was unclear, but because he was too clear. They knew exactly what he was saying, and their hearts, bound by tradition and pride, couldn't receive it. And yet, the same declaration that provoked their rage also offers us the path to life. Because I am is more than a title. It is an invitation. He is not just the God of power, but of presence, not just the one who was or will be, but the one who is, here, now, waiting not just to be known, but to be followed. This changes everything. It means your past doesn't disqualify you. Because I am exists outside of time, he redeems what came before. It means your future isn't something to fear. Because I am is already present in what's ahead. And it means your present, however complicated or confusing, is not empty, because I am is with you in it. The transformation this verse offers is not simply cognitive. It is spiritual, emotional, and practical. It asks us to reorient the entire architecture of our lives around one truth. Jesus is not just a way, he is the way. Not just a messenger, he is the message. Not just a teacher, he is the truth. And here's what's astonishing. The God who said I am also says, come to me. Not just come to an idea, a religion, or a tradition. Come to me, the person of Jesus, the eternal one who stepped into skin, bore the weight of sin, rose in victory, and now calls each of us by name. This isn't mythology. It's not metaphor. It's the story of everything. And the transformation begins not with trying harder, but with bowing lower, with letting go of the illusion that we can define God on our terms, and receiving the one who already defined himself. Before Abraham was, I am. 7 words that confront. 7 words that comfort. 7 words that still call across time, across culture, across unbelief, into the hearts of those willing to listen. So now, it's your turn to answer. Not with a stone, not with a shrug, but with your life. Because the great I Am is not a distant deity. He is standing at the door.